Hello and welcome to the Two Guys One Roto podcast. Alongside my tag team partner Rich Sayer, I'm merely David Whitcomb. Richard, welcome.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. For those of you who've been following along our Twitter page or our YouTube show, which is not a lot of you, unfortunately, but we are looking forward to capturing a larger audience with this pod. This is the first episode of our podcast. It's sort of a continuation of our YouTube show. And this episode one, is a compilation. So what it is, it's a list. We had each of us published our midseason top 50 prospects list, which you can find at twoguys1roto.com. I did my list, which is perhaps a little bit more real life centric. Rich did his list, which is perhaps a little bit more fantasy centric. And then we simply merged the two lists and came up with the top 25. So that's what today's episode is going to be, is our top 25 overall prospects in baseball. Just to be clear, and Rich, I don't mean to step on toes here, just to be clear though, as far as we're concerned, a prospect is somebody who's still in the minor leagues. So, like, for example, Paul Skeens, who is still minor league eligible, was not eligible for our list. However, there are a few exceptions we made, like Hurston Waldrop, for example, I know jumps off the page. Our lists were done before he got promoted, so they will appear on this episode, even though they don't technically meet the rules. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, the podcast is free. So, anyway. Rich, anything to add?
Are you saying you get what you pay for?
I'm saying you get more than what you pay for, since the podcast is free and you're getting tremendous value.
Well, that sounds like a good value for sure. And, to just mention what you were saying earlier, the one piece of feedback we did consistently get from our YouTube show was, is there any way to absorb this content without having to look at you guys? So
Right.
we are. We appreciate the feedback, and
Yep.
we're in the podcast medium.
Yep. As a twice divorced man, I can tell you that I have a face made for podcasting. So, all right. So, without further ado, we're going to kick off our list with our number one overall prospect. Two Guys One Roto number one overall prospect in baseball, which is Rich Sayer. Why don't you tell the fans? Rich Sayer?
Am I back? Can you hear me?
There we go. Yep. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay.
Thank you.
Rich, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody our number one overall prospect in baseball?
Number one overall is going to be Junior Caminero.
Junior Caminero. Hard to go wrong there. Rich, you want to care to share your quick thoughts on him?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at what's happened since the beginning of the year to now, mostly the same as it has been for him. He's had a little bit of injury. When he hasn't been hurt, he's been a power hitter. So more of the same. Looks like an impact amount of power, good contact. I'm a little concerned with these continuing injuries. Is he just too tweaked up? Is this going to be an issue going forward?
Right.
But you look at the upside, and it's all there.
Absolutely. My thoughts on Caminero are pretty simple. And for those of you who continue to listen to our show, which we hope is a lot of people, you'll find with regards to prospect, I like coming up with comps. I know a lot of people don't like doing comps. I like doing comps, but I like doing realistic comps. People will comp somebody to Bryce Harper or to Ken Griffey Jr. or to Bo Jackson, and that's just not a thing. For me, Junior Caminero is Jorge Soler's good seasons. I'm just not sure where he's going to play. Like, he's going to be a third baseman, he's going to be a second baseman, he's going to be a right fielder. I'm not really sure, but Jorge Soler's good seasons somewhere. So that's Caminero for me. All right, number two prospect in baseball is Jackson Holliday. And Rich, again, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts?
Yeah, so it hasn't gotten off to the start maybe you were hoping it got off to in the off season. Had struggled a little bit, set back down, but again, more of the same pretty much. We're talking about like a handful of games in the bigs.
I think it was only 11 games.
Yeah, maybe even a good opportunity to buy at this point. I haven't changed my opinion on him. Extremely solid. prospect, going
Yep.
to be contributing, opportunity to be a top 5 player, whether it's second base or another position.
Now that's interesting to hear you say that. I haven't changed my opinion on him at all either. I was the low man in the room on him, and I probably, were it not for, and I'll mention this once or twice throughout the pod, were it not for peer pressure, so to speak, so like industry pressure, which I shouldn't probably succumb to, um, I probably would have ranked him lower. I think he's a good prospect. I don't think he's a great prospect. I think he's going to be a very good Major League Baseball player for a very long time. I just don't necessarily see him as having, like you just said, top 5 player in baseball or fantasy or any of that kind of stuff. I just don't see that kind of upside whatsoever.
I
But
should
nevertheless,
clarify top 5 at the position. I'm not saying overall.
oh, I
It
see.
has to
Okay,
take
gotcha.
another step to get to top 5 overall. But yeah, any given year, I think certainly a good bet to be going
Right.
forward in the top 5 at second base, for example.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Our number 3 prospect is James Wood. And again, Rich, why don't you lead us off with your thoughts on James Wood?
So, for me, big concern on the hit tool coming into the year. That was the big question.
Yep.
Crazy athleticism. Obviously, you got the power with the frame and the swing, and he's made a lot of strides in that area. Not just the contact, the plate discipline as well. He's taken more walks than he ever has this year, moving up
Yep.
to AAA. Very young. Looks like an elite type of player. Probably, could have even had him. I actually had him 1 overall, but yeah, it's gaining steam, if anything, rather than slowing down as he's been getting promoted.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And again, lazy comp here. And I know that borrowing a phrase from an old Keith Law phrase, that you're not supposed to compare players across races. That's like supposedly a thing in baseball. Like, not that he doesn't do it, rather, but like that old timey baseball people are like, oh, you can't compare a white player to a black player, or whatever, that kind of thing. But James Wood reminds me a lot of Adam Dunn. Adam Dunn with better defensive chops and a touch more speed. If he comes anywhere near the outcome, that is one hell of a ball player. So anyway, moving right along to number 4 prospect in baseball. Begging your permission, Rich, I'm going to lead off with this one, if that's okay.
Go for it.
All right, so our number 4 prospect in baseball is Kobe Mayo, which is a pretty aggressive ranking compared to, again, a lot of the hashtag lists around the internet. My thoughts on Kobe Mayo are going to bring a smile to Rich's face. I think Kobe Mayo comps well to Russ Branyan if he had been good. Like, basically he's got a lot of the same body type, he's got a lot of the same power. He not really sure, he's probably too big for third base, but he's going to move to first or the outfield or whatever. But I went and looked up Russ Branyan's best season, and it was only like a 2.5 win season. I thought he had probably had a couple 4 win seasons in there, and I was going to say, like, Kobe Mayo's going to be Russ Branyan's good seasons, but he's going to be better than Russ Branyan's good seasons. So he's Russ Branyan if he had been good.
Yeah, I've been all in on this guy for a while. Not that you can realistically comp somebody in AAA to a Hall of Famer, and I'm not necessarily trying to do that, but looking at his swing gives me shades of right-handed Jim Tomei. So I'm not saying that's the outcome. I'm not saying that's a lock.
Yep.
But I put that in my off-season review, and I see that kind of power, potentially that kind of third base for a year or two, move over to first, move over to DH down the line.
Right.
The hitting is exciting for me.
No doubt. Okay. All right. Moving right along, our next guy up for the bidding, up for discussion, is Jordan Lawler. You want to lead this one off again, Rich, or you want me to?
You jump in.
All right. So this is another peer pressure prospect for me. The triple P. I don't get it. He's good. He's not great. In my prospect write up, I cited the scene from History of the World Part 1, the great Mel Brooks movie, where the emperor says it's nice. It's not great, but it's nice. he's always hurt. I mean literally always. He came back, and I think the second day he came back, or maybe even the game he came back, he got hurt again. Um, he shows exciting tools, but not superlative ones. I don't know. I just don't get it. He reminds me of Ketel Marte, like Ketel Marte's bad seasons and always hurt.
Yeah, I mean, the injury part of it is more of a question mark going forward. But I see a shortstop, 2030 type of bat, and has a lot of value. So again, maybe you lean towards the fantasy realm.
Yeah.
But I think that's a difference making type of player on a fantasy roster.
Okay, that's fair. Uh, Next item up for bidding is Carson Williams. And I'm going to go ahead and lead off with this one because Carson Williams is a personal fave. I had him ranked third overall. Uh, Give me this guy over Jackson Holiday. Give me this guy over Jordan Lawler. Um, this guy is, give me him over virtually every prospect in baseball 8 days a week and twice on Sundays. This guy is an everyday shortstop in the big leagues who's going to not necessarily hit for a lot of average, but he just, again, I like the comps. I like to try to do realistic comps, and maybe that's lazy. I don't know. But for me, he reminds me of Brandon Crawford if Brandon Crawford hit 35 homers a year. And that is one hell of a ball player. So,
Yeah, as we're getting through the rankings, this was our first really divisive player.
yep,
Not to say I don't like Carson Williams. I think he's going to be a fantastic real life player, and a ton of that is that high end defensive value, and he's going to play all the time. I think he's going to be a little bit streakier than you really like, just with the contact, and that's going to be baked in. But he's going to be a major league player, and he's going to have a lot of value to his team. So.
okay, fair enough. Rich, next player up on the list is a personal favorite of yours. So, will you go ahead and lead us off with Noah Schultz?
Yes, sir. So I've been, I think, high on Noah for a while. I just see him, obviously you have the injury question marks, but if you're looking at upside talent in the minors, I think you have to be on board with this guy. Just elite stuff. Um, the size is almost outlier type of size for a pitcher. And for me, really almost unprecedented the ability to control at this age with that stuff and
Yep.
that size and all of that together is really why I've been very aggressive on him. He's up to Double A already. Hasn't really even been challenged yet. And I'm just really excited about it. I think he's right now my number one pitching prospect.
Yep. I totally agree. He's my number two pitching prospect in baseball, but that's splitting hairs. He definitely reminds me of this is a lazy comp again because he's tall and he's left-handed and all that and whatever, but he is a more refined and way less overpowering Randy Johnson. um so that's Randy Johnson is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's Noah Schultz is presumably not, but that is still, if he even approaches those heights, then that's one heck of a turnout. The next prospect on our list is the first one that we were in unison on, but he comes in at number 8 on our list because of the averages, and it's Hurston Waldrop. So go ahead and talk about Hurston Waldrop, Rich.
I'm really excited about him, and obviously by the time you're listening to this, he's had a couple rough starts in the majors, and he's got a little bit of a question with the arm right now. So none of that is ideal. But you look at where he started this year, had a little bit of a rough start in the minors as well. Was working through some things, some checklist items. I think the Braves had him working on, and then he came out on fire. He's only got the 2 or 3 starts with any Statcast data, and I think he's already been recorded as having one of the top 5 pitches in the majors for the season. So, or anything Statcast recorded. So
Right.
I'm very excited about what the potential is. I see him as a frontline starter. He's got to work on the control. There's a lot of pieces there, but again, upside, somebody to be excited about. And in
Totally
that
agree.
Braves organization, I think that's a plus.
Yep, totally agree. Give me the pitching factory. Give me the major collegiate program, University of Florida graduate, or
Yep.
not. I don't know if he's a graduate, but anyway, but he's a University of Florida product.
Yep.
And give me the guy with the dominant pitch, right? Like it's a lot of guys. I don't know who good example. Kyle Gibson is a good example. A lot of guys have a lot of pitches, right? Like, but
Yep.
not a lot of guys have a pitch, right? Like one that you
Yep.
just can't hit, and that's Hurston Waldrop's splitter. I'm all in on this guy as Kevin Gossman, maybe not Cy Young level Kevin Gossman, but Kevin Gossman's non-Cy Young seasons.
Yep.
And once again, we're talking about that is one heck of an outcome.
Yep.
Rich, do you have the next guy on our list? I've been talking nonstop about the next guy. Do you have the next guy queued up, or do you want me to give it?
I do, yeah. So next we're looking at Marcelo Mayer of
Yep.
the Red Sox system.
Yep, Marcelo Mayer is interesting. So we had another pretty big split here, where I had him sixth, and you had him 15th. And for me, Marcelo Mayer is the how do you put it? He's the consummate greater than the sum of his parts prospect, right? Um, he is Boston's taking it slow. They're taking him level by level. He's a prodigious talent. He's a high school talent, so they're just taking him one step at a time, kind of thing. But ultimately, what do I see when I look at Marcelo Mayer? I see this is a starting shortstop on a championship caliber club, and that's saying a lot in real baseball terms.
Yep, I agree with that as well.
So, all right. Moving right along. Next up is Walker Jenkins. Why don't you go ahead and talk about Jenkins a little bit there, Rich?
Yeah, so there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about this year.
Yep.
Had a little bit of an injury, hasn't really gotten a chance to put much to the page or to the eye yet this year. But again, I had him as a top 10 guy in the off season, so he's still kind of hovering in that range. And it's all about the tools, the upside. What he did last year was pretty impressive for his age, and
Yep.
it's just I think an exciting package.
He is, yeah, he is certainly. We had a little bit of not huge disparity here, but I had him 14th, whereas you had him 8th, and I agree. You got huge upside there, but for me, the reason that I suppress him a little bit is, I mean, he's light years away from the big leagues. I mean, we're talking best case scenario is a 2026 cup of coffee with a 2027 real debut, probably.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's best case. So anyway, all right, moving
yep,
right along. I'll take the lead on this one if you don't mind.
yeah. Go for it.
Emmanuel Rodriguez, another divisive prospect for us, and a lot. I had him 17th. You had him 6th. And he is on the Jordan Lawler fan club of always being hurt. He is in his, I believe, fourth. I didn't write it down, but anyway, his fourth or fifth professional season. Total, he has one of those seasons where he has more than 200 plate appearances. That's not great. That's not a lot of plate appearances. Tools for days. Batting eye is incredible. They want to comp him to like a Juan Soto almost. I mean, that's borderline ridiculous, but whatever. Great batting eye, great tools, great power. Can field, the whole nine. Going to play an excellent right field, probably in the majors. But again, citing my boy Keith Law, availability is an ability, and he has not had a lot of availability.
Yep, that's 100% true. And I've actually been definitely more conservative than I am in this ranking, where I had him at 6 overall in my own personal. Um, just seeing the approach continue and even excel at double A, I think was a changer for me. It's just really an outlier approach and skill set. I think there's nobody else doing it the way that he's doing it,
True.
and it's continuing to work.
Yep.
And he's basically, freezing out most of the zone. If he doesn't want to hit it, he's not going to swing at it.
Yeah.
And if you throw it where he wants to hit it, he's going to hit it. So,
Yep. He's
and
like
he's got
selective
all the
almost to a
tools.
fault.
Yep, yep.
Yep. So
So
okay. All right, moving right along. The Martian is up next. Jason Dominguez. Why don't you go ahead and talk about Martian a little bit?
yeah, for me, actually, not necessarily in the approach and the skills, but just the overall picture. Somewhat similar. I was very conservative on Dominguez for a while. Was not putting up fantastic numbers a lot of the time in the minors. And when he got to the higher levels, when he got to the majors and just started crushing bombs, it's like, well, you got to, I have to adjust. So,
Right.
beautiful swing, fantastic power. Question on the injury front,
Yep.
potentially. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at with him. But yeah, he's got a lot of talent, and I've come around for sure.
Totally agree. He's you wonder, not that he's built, nobody's this Adonis isn't built like Giancarlo Stanton, but in that same vein as Giancarlo Stanton, you wonder if he's a little too muscle bound, right? The dude is
Mm,
built like a freaking fire hydrant.
yep.
And to your point though, as he's gotten closer to the big leagues, his production has gotten better, almost as if he was just bored at the lower levels, which you hate to even insinuate that. I mean, how could whatever, but who knows? But
Yep.
bottom line is he's electric in his big league debut last year, and I'll be curious, especially as a Yankees fan, when we will see the encore. Um, all right, next up is Dylan Cruz. Go ahead and talk about Dylan Cruz a little bit, Rich.
So I had him at 12 in the off season, and he's dropped down to me a little bit, just because the production hasn't been there. We all know the tools are there. The college production has been there. The major league production has not really excelled. Was okay in single A, and maybe ran out of gas at the end of last year, but was still really just, in my opinion, okay in double A. And then you
Yep.
start to hear some.
Oh, you there?
Oh, sorry about that.
We lost you there. Go
You
ahead.
Yeah, so you start to hear some of these whispers also with Cruz, like maybe he's got a mindset on the way he wants to do things and doesn't want to adjust to some of the coaching. I obviously have no idea if that's true or not, but there's whispers out there. So for me, it's definitely a question mark right now on where that goes. He did get up to AAA, but other than a couple home runs, you haven't seen a lot really
Right.
there on the page yet
Right.
either. So
Yep. We'll see. I am not of the mind that Dylan Cruz has any problems. I have him ranked as my ninth overall prospect. He's off to, like you said, a decent start in AAA. He was at, I think, Harrisburg, if I remember correctly, at AA in the Eastern League, which is kind of a renowned, tough pitching or hitting environment, rather. And I think he will be doing just fine at AAA. I think this guy's career is going to turn out just fine. I don't really have any concerns at all. Again, lazy comps, but for me, he's Jason Worth's career, basically. Some really great seasons, some really decent seasons. Always provides you the defensive value, and oftentimes provides you a lot of hitting value too. So,
yeah.
all right. Next up, go ahead, Rich.
Another guy that I've liked for a while, Jackson Jobe. More health questions, unfortunately. So that's becoming more of a red flag as you go. But great stuff, great control. It's all there if he can nail down that, I think,
Yeah.
availability element.
Yep, yep, and he does fit into this seemingly more modern mold of again, nobody comps to Spencer Strider, but of the two pitch artist. He's got a third pitch. I think a changeup that he's been working on or whatever, but anyway, bottom line is how much can you make the two pitch mix work? We've seen more and more pitchers do it. Carlos Rodon does it to an extent where he has multiple fastballs and then his devastating slider. But anyway, bottom line is that we'll see if he can get healthy and if he can make the two pitch mix work. Next up is one that we were pretty divisive on. So why don't you go ahead and lead off with him because you were higher on him than I was.
Yeah, I see that here. So Heston Kjerstad, for me, what you saw in the minors, he's not going to be maybe a 1,000 or 1,100 OPS type guy, but it's your classic right field profile. I think you shouldn't be deterred by the way he started with that handful of games off, mostly off the bench or random starting time. I think it's a top five type right field guy, more seasons than not.
Yep.
So I'm still on the train there.
Yeah, he's interesting because he lost the developmental time due to the illness that he had, and he's 25 years old at AAA. But he does have a 905 career minor league OPS, and he's just a hitter, right? He just hits the damn ball. I do have some questions about him defensively. Not that he's going to be subpar to the point of unplayable, but I wonder if he's not better off just as a full time DH. Like maybe like a JD Martinez almost, where like they play him in the outfield for a few years and then realize like, why don't we just hide this guy's glove?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
anyway, we'll see. But I do agree that his probably, to use yet another comp, his floor, and this is not exciting at all if you're a fantasy player, but if you're a real life baseball outcome, his floor is probably Matt Stairs. And that's a great career. Like any baseball player would take Matt Stairs' career. Any prospect rather would take Matt Stairs'
Yeah.
career. So
Yeah.
anyway. So all right, moving right along. Roman Anthony is our next prospect on the list. And he is exciting to me.
Yeah.
He has
Yep.
he's 20 years old. He's a double A. He's not only holding his own, he's getting better as the season goes along. He has, I read a stat today, he has a 171 WRC plus since May 1st.
Mm.
He's a true center fielder. He's a true five-tool talent. Frankly, I find hard to find a lot of flaws in this profile. I feel like maybe I should have ranked him higher.
Yeah, I agree with that. It did have a little bit of a slow start, but you just cited, how he's been doing, and it's a really great sign. I think when you make adjustments and you improve at the level as the season goes on.
Yep, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, why don't you go ahead and lead us off with the next guy, bud?
Yep. So we got Colt Emerson, a riser since the draft, and he's been backing it up. Incredible on base percentage. Haven't seen a tremendous amount of power yet, but he's only 18 to this point, and just looks like he's got a really solid foundation, especially if he can stay at shortstop long term.
Yeah, no doubt. He had that monster debut, right? Like you hate to, cite like Mike Trout, but right, like that kind of thing where it was like, holy shit, where'd this guy come from, right?
Yeah.
962 OPS as a pro, as a high school product. I mean, just absolutely. I had him ranked 13, you had him 22. Either way, he's definitely an exciting youngster for the Mariners. All right, moving right along. Next prospect up, if you begging your permission, Rich, I'm going to lead him off if that's okay.
Yep. Yep.
Is Sebastian Walcott, and I feel like I wish there were some way. I'm sure there probably is a way with this podcast. I wish there was some way to play the Jaws music before we played this, because I feel like this is one that the whole industry is going to look back and be like, why didn't we rank this guy higher, us included? Not that we're part of the industry, but whatever. Anyway, we've got an 18-year-old who's in high A, who's put up a 157 WRC plus in June. He's a true shortstop, or possibly a third baseman if he outgrows the position. There's just not a lot to not just like, but love about Walcott. I think this is a superstar in the making, and I definitely feel like I should have had him ranked higher.
Yeah, and it's like what we were talking about with Roman Anthony. What I really like, again, a little bit of a slow start to the year, but as an 18-year-old in high A, you take that for what it is, and he's been making the adjustments. The contact has gotten better as he's gone along, and that's been the number one question about what he can do as he gets higher. So,
Yep.
very exciting for me. Definitely a holder and best for me.
Yeah, no doubt. So, all right. Next up is another Gator, Christian Scott. Christian Scott is not necessarily going to be one of the more exciting prospects on this list, but if I had to bet on one of the guys on this list to get to, say, 20 career WAR, he would be near the top. Christian Scott, for me, again, I love my comps. Christian Scott, you take Kyle Loesch's 2012 season where he got Cy Young votes inexplicably, with fewer innings pitched because nobody pitches 230 innings anymore, but more strikeouts. And then you do that for like 10 seasons in a row.
Yep.
And that's Christian Scott. Like he's just going to be really, really good for a really long time.
Yeah, I think that's on the money. He's already shown that he's capable of playing well in the majors. In his first taste. So great foundation. I don't know if the ceiling is super high, but I think you're right. I think he's a good bet to be a solid type of rotation piece for a while.
Yep. So, all right, moving right along. Andrew Painter is our next one, and again, I'm going to take the lead on this one if you don't mind.
Yep.
We had a pretty huge disparity here. You had him 16, I had him 31. I don't trust this guy at all. I feel like maybe I should have ranked him even lower. He hasn't thrown a professional pitch since 2022. And he probably, well, there's a chance he'll throw another professional pitch this year, but there's also a chance he won't. So it's possible he's going to go 3 years in between throwing professional pitches. That seems like not a great recipe for long-term success. Stuff is there, he's got the prototypical build, the size, the whole thing, whatever. But when you're never taking the mound, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Rich Sayer,
Yep.
defend your
Yep.
boy.
And you can hand wave away, oh, Tommy John is routine now. It's not. There's guys like Dylan Lesko that
Walker
haven't
Bueller.
really, yeah, that haven't really gotten back to where they'd like
Yep.
to be. But again, this is a bet on upside for me, and what he was showing as a 19-year-old in high A, double A, 2022 was very much unseen. And it's just an exciting package. And I think if you want to bet on something that's going to give you a fantastic return, I'm still in on Painter. But yeah, we've been waiting a little while.
That makes sense. Yep. So, all right, moving right along. Why don't you go ahead and give us the next guy, bud?
So Adiel Amador, and he was just briefly up, although I think he's on the IL right
He is,
now.
yes. Yes, that's correct. Yep.
But he had a frigid start to the year, and then just as cold as he had been, he exploded for a period of 2 or 3 weeks, and then they called him up. For me, it's definitely a bet on the hit tool. Hasn't traditionally shown a lot of power in the minor leagues. I think there's more in there just based on some injuries that he had and how he played through that or came back from that. But I think the hit tool is special. The contact ability is
Yeah.
special. Got to sort that out on the eye side, but I think there's a lot of upside.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this is a kind of a classic. This is interesting to hear you talk this favorably about this guy because you one of your
Yeah.
mantras is it's great that he's at a high level at a young age, but if he's not producing, so what? And youth is definitely on his side, production less so. So
Yep.
we shall see. The tools are there. We'll see about the
Yep.
production catching up to them. Next
Yeah,
guy up.
and what I don't know, I'll just mention one other thing. That's definitely an outlier for me is for somebody with speed and the contact ability that he has, how he can BABIP under 200 for an extended period of time
Yeah,
is a question that I have. I don't have the answer to that, but I'll
yeah.
throw that out there as well.
Fair enough. Next guy up, I'm going to lead off if that's okay, is my
Yep.
preseason number 10 overall prospect in baseball, Noel V. Marte. I've moved him down to 18 on my list. Rich, you had him at 31. Obviously, everybody's concerns was some of the performance enhanced, I guess is the best way of putting it. And we'll see. Obviously, again, he said he doesn't know where it came from. I mean, that's obviously bullshit. But bottom line is that I still think he's a special talent. I still think he's an everyday third baseman for the next half decade at least for Cincinnati. I still think he's a guy who's going to not necessarily hit huge power numbers, but he's going to hit probably 25 bombs with like 45 double. Well, I mean, 45, but 35 to 40 doubles. And that's a very nice player to have. So, any other thoughts on Noelvi?
Yeah, so I do think he'll be, he's a major league caliber player. I just don't see the power there. When I said earlier in the offseason review is to me this is looking more like early career Yandy Diaz, where you had
Okay.
a lot of tools, but maybe more grounders than you like, or for whatever reason it just wasn't translating into the actual production. And then you had the PED issue. So we'll
Yep.
see.
Yep. All right. Next guy up is Aiden Miller, and Aiden Miller is another one that we were pretty divisive on. Interestingly, I had him at 19. You had him at 30. For me, begging your permission, I'll lead off with this one or whatever. But I love
Yeah.
the high. I love the high makeup types. The guys who are the baseball, the red asses or the baseball gym rats or whatever you want to call them, that kind of thing. Not gym rats. That's a basketball term. Whatever. The guys who you just look at him and you're like, that's a ball player, that kind of thing. He's 20 years old and he's in high A.
Yep.
He seems like a surefire big leaguer. I don't know if he's necessarily going to stick at the six. He seems more likely to move to third base. But for me, I don't, again, I don't have a comp right off the top of my, actually, no, I do. Alec Boehm would be an interesting comp right off the top of my head.
Mhm.
That's a super lazy one because he's right there on the Phillies. But yeah, kind of similar. He's just going to be a good ass ball player for a good period of time. So,
Yep.
anything
Yeah.
else on Aiden Miller?
Now we were divisive, relatively speaking, but neither of us, most people didn't have him as a top 100 in the offseason. So to bring him into the top 25, I think is recognizing how he's translated that ability thus far in his young career.
Yep. So, all right. Next guy up is Kyle Teal. He's our second to last top 25. Kyle Teal at 24. And let me tell you, the Red Sox are about to have one hell of a good problem behind the dish. Connor Wong is performing quite well as apparently the centerpiece to the Mookie Betts trade. And Kyle Teal is just demolishing the minor leagues. I mean, he's playing incredibly well defensively, and he has a plus. I want to say he has a career like 907 OPS in the minors as well. So, what's not to like? Bottom line is, this is going to be a good problem for the Sox to have here in short order.
Yeah, and I think ranked high on both of our lists in the top 25. The fact that you can do it at catcher, I think, is a lot of real world value for sure.
Right.
And I think he's an on base machine. So
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And then our last prospect in our top 25 is Lazaro Montes. Rich, why don't you go ahead and talk about Lazaro first?
So yeah, you big time power hitter. But really good for that type of skill set. You want to, maybe pigeonhole a guy into that role. Fantastic contact ability, fantastic on base ability. I think as a hitter, he's the whole package. On defense, it's a different story, but I think this is somebody that can be a top five bat in the
Yep.
league, and you can realistically see that from where he is now.
100% agree. My comment that I wrote today is that I'm embarrassed by my ranking. I had him ranked 28th. He should be in my top 10. I believe he's that good a hitter. I think he's a 4 to 6 win player on his bat alone. And that is one heck of a baseball player. So Lazaro Montes, with apologies if you're listening, which of course you're not, but hopefully you are. I don't even know if you speak English, maybe, whatever. We'll translate for you. I mean, if Lazaro Montes wants to listen to this podcast, we will learn Spanish. We're going to put that down in writing right now.
I,
But anyway,
I agree
but
with
yeah,
that.
bottom line is, I feel like I should have had this guy a hell of a lot higher than I did. So, all
There
right,
it is.
there's our
Top
top
25.
25. We wanted to close with just one each of a prospect that didn't make the overall top 25, but that did make our individual top 25. So, do you want to go first, Rich, or do you want me to? Mine's maybe a
Uh,
little bit more fun. Yours, is a little bit more, realist. I don't know, whatever. Mine's more real
uh,
world. Mine's more real world. Yours is more fantasy. So you pick.
yeah, that's fine. I'll go with based on that criteria. I'll go with Max Clark. He's somebody that I think has gotten lost in the hype a little bit between the great draft class of last year. A lot of those guys being in the upper minors already, or Skeens is already in the majors. So I think he's got a great foundation. I do think the power will come. Hasn't really come so far yet, but I think he's a top end talent, and we'll start to see that as the season goes on.
Okay. And then mine is my number one overall prospect. Somehow my number one overall, again, just so we're clear on this, number one overall prospect in all of baseball didn't make the top 25 because of the averages. That's Ethan Salas.
Yep.
Again, mine leans more real world than fantasy baseball. I'll hang, I'll take this with me to my dying grave. We'll see, how his career shapes out. I'm excited to watch it, but I am thoroughly convinced this guy is Pudge Rodriguez 2.0. If I had to, out of anybody on this entire list, if I had to bet my own money, $1,000 of my own money on one of these guys to make the Hall of Fame, it's Ethan Salas. So that's how I feel about it. But anyway,
And
um,
and I don't know that I'd bet against that. I just I think that for me, it seems like the Padres are potentially doing this guy a disservice. I don't know that you need to be sporting a 600 OPS, but
yeah, yeah.
we're stuck
Well,
where we are right now. So
to be fair, I don't even know if it's the Padres doing him a disservice so much as it is Rob Manfred getting rid of rookie ball levels where he would have started last year and then he'd be in low A this year.
yeah,
So anyway, that's another conversation for another day. So
yep.
we'll close with that. We had some other goodies we were going to try and share, but we're out of time. So that is the episode 1, Two Guys, One Roto, mid-season top 25 prospect lists. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give us a follow on Twitter at Two Guys One Roto, or you can follow me individually at DW The Original. Or Rich, what's your Twitter handle again?
That's a great question. I'll have to get back to that
Okay.
episode 2. I'm gonna
Okay.
leave that for suspense. Yeah.
All right, all right. Well, it's on the Two Guys One Roto page. You can find it there. If you go to add Two Guys One Roto, both our Twitter handles are there. But
Yep.
we would love to field questions or comments or anything, not just about prospects, but about baseball in general or fantasy or what do you think of this trade or whatever. Bottom line, we're looking to get some notoriety out there for free. We're not looking to set up a Patreon. We're not looking to monetize a YouTube account or anything like that. What we're looking to do is we're just a couple of guys who really enjoy baseball and really enjoy fantasy baseball, and we want to interact with more people doing it. So appreciate everybody's time. Rich, good talking to you as always, bud.
Yeah. Great to do the show with you. See you next time.
All right, see you next time, fellas.